Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Macat, and welcome to our World of Darkness, where it's Metaplot Monday. And today we discuss one of the more integral plots that ties together the entire whole of the World of Darkness. Today's subject, the Convention of Thorns. I have been playing several months before the event of the Convention of Thorns was brought to my attention. I didn't exactly know what it was. I knew that it was the event that caused the formation of all of the major sects of vampire society. The Anarch Revolt itself was a thing. It was an event that had been taking place for years, that Childer had finally gotten fed up with elders, treating them like cannon fodder in a war against humans. But the Anarchs themselves, the sect, did not exactly exist until they had an actual adversary to bounce off of. And that's where the formation of the Camarilla and the Sabbat come into play. Now, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but in the older stories, in the first edition storylines, in the old novels, you would see situations where a scene would be set in a bar, and there would be a group of anarchs just milling about, complaining about the Camarilla, complaining about the Sabbat. That's all they did, is they just bitched back and forth towards each other. And then either a prince or an archbishop would walk into a room, and it would be like picking a dodgeball team. They'd be like you, you, and you. And the individuals chosen for the group that was doing the picking would all of a sudden change their tune and be excited to be part of the group. I always found that humorous. I always found it interesting that the idea was you were an anarch until one of the sects chose you. Now, when Revise came around, that changed a little bit. You were embraced into the Camarilla. You were embraced into the Sabbat. And an anarch was an individual kindred who could not stand the way that the machinations and the politics and everything went in those groups. They could realize that although you were living in the lap of luxury, as in the Camarilla, you still had a golden leash around your neck. That the Sabbat were nothing but religious zealots that were just there to cause problems. When I heard about the Anarchs, that's how I pictured them originally, that they were what the Sabbat are, minus the religious fanaticism. That they were a terrorist cell. But I think that's what the Camarilla wants you to think. But I think I might be stepping out of bounds. Today we're here to discuss the true event that formed the groups, that formed the sects of vampiric society. Today we discuss the Convention of Thorns. The Convention of Thorns was a peace agreement between leaders of the Camarilla, the Anarchs, and the Banu Hakim, made on October 23, 1493. It marked the end of open conflict between three groups, and more specifically, an end to the Anarch Revolt. Its name comes from the location of the meeting, the Abbey of the Sacred Crown, near the small village of Thorns outside Silchester in England. The convention was proposed by the founders of the Camarilla, who had created the sect only 7 years earlier. It called for a lasting truce between the Banu Hakim and Anarchs, who were both offered a place in the Camarilla. The Anarchs accepted, while the Banu Hakim declined. The Banu Hakim truce was assured, however, by the Bruja clan, who had captured and ransomed 7 Banu Hakim elders. In addition to the large payment of gold, the Banu Hakim had to submit their entire clan to a thaumaturgical curse levied by the warlocks of the newly formed Camarilla, which would prevent them from committing diablerie. In spite of this, the convention specifically stated that the Banu Hakim were to be an independent clan of the Camarilla, and may freely diablerize their own clan members, and any kindred not claiming membership within the Ivory Tower. The convention places equal responsibility on all three groups for maintaining peace, but is seen by most anarchs as a disaster. It specified that while no anarch would face reprisal for their actions, except for the especially heinous, which would be considered by the Justicars within a year or forgotten, they would have to return to their clans and sires, re-establishing the status quo they had rebelled against. Anarchs of the Lasombra and Tzimisce clans did not accept the convention, however, and went on to form the Sabbat. A number of anarchs from other clans followed suit and became the first anti-tribute. Despite further anarch rebellions, like the establishment of the Anarch Free States on the west coast of the United States of America in the 1940s, and the breaking of the Banu Hakim curse, the Convention of Thorns is still upheld, if not respected, in most Camarilla cities. Anarchs are not punished unless they hide their membership or openly rebel. The Banu Hakim are hired as assassins or executioners by the princes, and sometimes allowed to de-alvarize their victims as payment. The convention sets up the authority of the Camarilla through the Justicars, Archons, and traditions. It also lays the foundations for the core clans which comprise it. The clans of the founders became the 7 clans of the Camarilla, though it is said that the ministry were invited as well and turned the offer down. It is rumored that Raphael de Corazon was upset by this. Founder Camilla Baines argued for the inclusion of the Cappadocians in the Camarilla, but was overruled by other members of the Malkavian clan. By the actions of the anarchs who refused the treaty, who then attacked the town of Silchester, the formation of the Sabbat was set in motion. The Convention of Thorns took place over the course of 6 evenings, beginning on October 18th, and on the 7th evening, the city of Silchester was attacked. It was perhaps the single largest gathering of kindred to date, comprising at least 50 individual representatives of all the clans, factions, and geographical locations. The convention began in the courtyard of the Abbey of the Sacred Crown, with the chosen moderator, Eleanor de Valois, opening the session by explaining the issue and introducing the founders of the Camarilla by name and clan. The predominant attitude of the attendees was one of cautious probing of an enemy position while readying for an attack. After the introduction, attendees broke into smaller groups to discuss what they had heard. In these smaller groups, some individuals became more willing to speak their minds. Now, many of the issues discussed were, should a general amnesty be granted to those whose actions led others astray, or should the leaders surrender themselves to the judgment of the Camarilla founders and their archons? Should the Banu Hakim remain independent of the Camarilla and refuse to subject themselves to the rulings? If they do remain apart, how may we ensure that their practices pose no further threat to the Camarilla? Shall the new proposal of the governance of Justicars and Archons be allowed to flourish? Shall the current holders of the positions remain in office? If not, who would be the new Justicars? How would we select future Justicars? And what would be their duties and responsibilities? Will we appoint a council to oversee the Justicars? Or should those Justicars serve as the highest authority in the Camarilla? On October 18th, the issues of general amnesty were discussed, and whether or not the leaders of the Anarchs should just be given over for judgment by Camarilla founders. If the Banu Hakim remained independent from the Camarilla and refused to subject themselves to ruling, what exactly would be the repercussions or the actions of the Camarilla to follow? And should a current system of governance managed by Justicars and Archons be allowed to flourish? Should the current holders of the positions remain in office? If not, who would the new Justicars be? How will they select future Justicars? And what will the duties and responsibilities of those positions hold? On October 19th, the results of the previous night's discussion were summarized in assemblies. Micah Vikos made an impassioned speech in favor of the goals of the Anarchs. Hardestat countered with an insistence on the necessity of discipline within the clans, and demanded a return to the hierarchy ruled by age and generation. At some point during the convention, Micah Vikos threw his penis in the face of Hardestat. On October 20th, after a summary of the previous night's progressions, a delegate of the Banu Hakim spoke for their clan. A heated discussion followed, during which Mistress Fanshin and other Tremere, in particular, called for strong measures to prevent the continued practice of diablerie. Micah Vikos and some of his anarchs greeted their words with diverse comments in reference to Tremere's diablerie of Salat and the Giovanni diablerie of the Cappadocians. And while the battle of words raged, the anarch leader Tyler, or Patricia of Bolingbroke, took this opportunity to burst into the delegation and make an attempt on the unlife of Hardestat, firing 2 pistols into his heart and shouting, "May your arrogant black heart be sundered, and your soul sucked down to hell, Hardestat. And this time, stay dead." Tyler escaped, seeming to think she had succeeded in her assault this time. A line of anarchs blocked those who followed her, allowing her escape. October 21st, a statement of progress opened this gathering. The ancient Malkavian Anmata called for cooperation and warned of disaster should this initiative fail. Then, an open forum provided the opportunity for any to make statements to the delegation. Raphael de Corzon then shared his vision of the importance of the masquerade and the necessity of the Camarilla. At first, he was ridiculed and almost forced to step down. His impassioned argument gained converts, however, and the masquerade was adopted. At the end of the discussion, Etrius and several senior Tremere excused themselves to begin the ritual that will prevent the Banu Hakim from drinking Cainite blood. October 22nd, Durjatsin, the famed Ravno, was already in place on the speaker's platform when the rest of the delegates arrived. She made a case for non-intervention, suggesting that the masquerade will only make the mortals angry that they were duped. The issue of Justicars and their succession took up the first half of the discussion once Durjatsin had left the platform. The delegates made their final arguments to the assembly and cast their votes. The attendees dispersed, with some taking part in drafting the Treaty of the Convention of Thorns, and others finalizing their plans for a statement of protest. Meanwhile, the Tremere continued to cast their ritual. October 23rd, the gathering listened to the reading of the treaty by Eleanor de Valois. The delegates who agreed to its terms signed the document. All anarchs who agreed to its terms are required to drink the blood of the Camarilla elders present. The elders explained that the Banu Hakim had been ordered to undergo a thaumaturgical ritual to prevent the practice of diablerie. The Tremere continued their ritual, began 3 nights before, ending just before sunrise. October 24th. On the night after the signing of the treaty, Micah Vikos led an attack by the Anarchs against the mortals of the city of Silchester, killing and intentionally violating the masquerade. They were described as sabbats of devils and witches by the mortals. The attack is referred to as Haseldema, the field of blood. Hardestat and Raphael de Corazon took charge of the mortal survivors. using the power of their combined disciplines to erase the memories of the demons, Hardestat and Adana di Savarza, then vowed to hunt down the attackers. Now those were obviously exciting nights during the formations of the sects. But the Treaty of the Convention of Thorns. The text of the treaty signed is as follows. Many years have passed since the start of our current conflict, now called the Anarch Movement. Be it known that on this night of 23 October 1493, the Jihad has ended. The time for self-destruction is over. The Convention, bound in the Covenant of Cain by sacred vow, represents an unyielding, vigilant truce between the kindred known unto themselves as the Anarchs, the clan Assamite, and the free-standing kindred bound under the title of Camarilla. Henceforth, the parties shall be recognized by factions as the Anarchs, the Assamites, and the Camarilla. Each of these parties agree to the responsibility of maintaining peace. Each shall lay its censures upon any who breach or oppose this sacred agreement. Accounting will be made of all parts for violations by them to either the letter or the spirit of this agreement. This document is legally binding under the acceptance of Lex Talionis of all Cainites, as it has passed through the ages. All kindred are entreated to accept and gain pleasure from this peaceful accord. Be it known that the Anarchs will enjoin with the Camarilla as an accepted part, making it whole. Anarchs are expected to work peacefully to achieve their own ends. They must become defenders of all, and they shall receive full entitlement to all rights and privileges belonging to all Camarilla kindred. All Anarchs shall be accepted back unto their elders and their formerly denounced clans without any fear of reprisal. Only the most vicious of atrocities shall not be forgiven. These shall stand written for the Justicars to hear within 1 year, after which all allegations are no longer valid. All Anarchs shall reclaim all remaining and rightful property confiscated from them. In return, they must turn over all war gains taken during the conflict by giving them to their sires or any recognized clan elder. Know also that if the Anarchs are further warred upon, this open jihad invalidates their responsibility to maintain peace with their attacker. They may act freely without fear of reprisal from non-active members of the Camarilla. Anarchs are guaranteed the freedom to act as they please, short of breaching the masquerade imposed for the protection of all kindred from the Cain. It is also noted that any member of any other self-proclaimed sect must openly declare this before his elders and renounce this relation. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of any deemed guilty. No kindred may be set unknowingly to his death by an elder or sire unless the security of clan or Camarilla outweigh the possible loss of unlife. From this night forward, the Assamites shall henceforth no longer commit diablerie upon members of other clans. The Assamites must commit themselves to this acceptance by a mark of assurance, placed upon them in the form of a thaumaturgical limitation. All members of the Assamites shall become unable to drink freely of the vitae of other kindred, from now unto forever. In addition, the Assamites shall pay to the Bruja elders of Spain 2,000 pounds of gold in ransom of the 5 Assamite elders captured committing diablerie. Also, the Assamites may no longer participate in blood hunts. Be it also known that Assamites are guaranteed to complete independence from Camarilla demands. The Assamite fortress of Alamot
shall be free from any further assaults. Assamites are also granted, out of respect for their beliefs, the freedom to commit diablerie within their own clan without restraint, and the right to commit diablerie upon all kindred not recognized as holding membership within the Camarilla. It is rendered that all parties involved, and all showing allegiance to any of these parties, shall be held responsible for all aspects of this convention brought forth here, in the neutral kingdom of England, outside of the hamlet of Thorns, near the town of Silchester. May Cain hold truth and peace for us all. Now that was quite the mouthful. And, as pretty as the words seemed, it did seem to leave the Anarchs in a bit of a interesting position. You can see how the Banu Hakim seem to have gotten the short end of the stick, although I can see how wonderful it is to have the permission from the Camarilla to diablerize within your own clan. So, what exactly does the Convention of Thorns lore sheet say for 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade? You are a scholar of the Convention of Thorns, at which vampires of all clans arrange the formation of the Camarilla. Perhaps you descend from one of the most important participants who spoke up at the convention, voicing their proposals for the new traditions. Maybe you study this historical period avidly in search of higher meaning or understanding of the laws that govern kindred society today. You can recite the names of the vampires who attended, the iterations of the traditions proposed at the convention, and even know some of the hidden proposals between clans that deigned not to join the Camarilla at the time. Knowledge of the Convention of Thorns can still be used to this night to apply pressure to Camarilla and Anarchs alike. You can find a full list of the 50 participants at the convention. And when you consider that, in the Dark Ages, the idea of the largest grouping of kindred in one place was 50 members. That's something to consider when you decide that you need more kindred in your game. If you invest 1 point of your background traits into the Convention of Thorns lore sheet, you get Thorns Historian. The Convention of Thorns was a complex, moving beast of diplomacy. Hundreds of small meetings took place between representatives of the clans that night, forging pacts that lasted years, decades, or centuries in some cases. You possess an encyclopedic knowledge of the convention's minor meetings, and you can call on this knowledge to apply legal pressures on the participants or their descendants, where pacts may still be in force, but not practiced or invoked without consent by all parties. Once per story, you can ask the storyteller for a piece of known information regarding the convention. That is a very interesting thing, considering the fact that there are so many vampires who either are or claim to be descended from Hardestet's line. 50 vampires can branch out to quite a large number of kindred. This could definitely come in handy if you're trying to use the Camarilla's own words against them. Investing 2 traits into the lore sheet will get you Tradition Master. The 6 traditions the Camarilla cling to tonight were first codified and agreed upon at the Convention of Thorns. Your knowledge of the convention extends to multiple apocryphal or proposed traditions, some of which nearly passed. Once per chronicle, you can exercise fringe laws in domains where the ruling clans may still be sympathetic to the unaccepted traditions of Thorns. Example pseudo-traditions might include: kindred in this domain are only permitted 1 embrace. All law enforcement is forbidden as feeding stock. Combat in Elysium is punishable by final death. Diablerie is permitted against any catif discovered in this domain, etc. This little bit of information could actually be more important than one might consider, due to the fact that the Ancilli have now taken the reins from their elder sires, who are going off to fight in the Gehenna Wars. This little bit of information can let you take advantage of suggestions that sires may have had at the given time. Doing this can also make it so that you can bend the laws the way that you want to for given purposes, but you can't take advantage of this too much. 3 traits invested is Convention Secrets. The Ministry declined an invitation to join as the 8th Pillar clan. The Lasombra rejected the Camarilla when it refused to acknowledge the existence of antediluvians. You have uncovered still more obscure secret proposals from the Convention, the Capitosians' petition to join, the Malkavian symbol draft, and more. You can drop enough hints to always take a 1 die bonus to social tests involving kindred who were present at the Convention. You also know a number of major secrets, each with a major boon to some powerful Cainite. Once per story, you can ask the storyteller for a name of a kindred who needs your knowledge. At this point, you become an information broker. This could be good for both Anarchs and Camarilla, considering the political maneuvering that both groups have to do towards each other. 4 traits invested in the Convention's background lore sheet. Prospective Justicar. The Camarilla Justicars first received appointment during the Convention of Thorns. No matter your political allegiance, somehow you, or your sire if you're far too young, have powerful support to become the next Justicar for your clan. If your clan is not one represented widely in the Camarilla, perhaps this appointment signals a sea of change among the sex clans. The Camarilla has gone through a lot of turbulence as of late. They've lost the Gangrel. They've lost the Bruja. The Banu Hakim have now joined. The Lasombra are petitioning. And the Ministry has lost favor for petition. This interesting 4-point lore sheet can give you the chance of becoming a Justicar. This is something that could very much change the course of a way a chronicle is run, and that needs to be considered by both storytellers and players alike. Does a player truly want that much power? However, if their sire had become the Justicar, that could either be a bane or a boon. More thoughts. The final 5-trait investment is new traditions. Your knowledge of the Convention of Thorns is such that you can compile enough evidence and support to propose a new tradition or an amendment to an existing one to the Camarilla's inner circle. This tradition may be accepted if it sounds sensible and helps the increasingly strict Camarilla in the world tonight, or it may mark you as a firebrand in danger to the sects. Importantly, your voice will be heard without prior judgment. That gets you an audience with the inner circle, or at least with the Justicars. The Convention of Thorns is a highlighted moment in the formation of our world of darkness. Without the Convention of Thorns, it would look very much different. There are LARP events dedicated to just how important this was. I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts might actually be when it comes to such a pivotal event. Thanks to the Convention of Thorns, We have such things as La Sombra Antitribu. We have the Sabbat itself. We have the Anarchs who use political knowledge and maneuvering to make their way through the night. I'm very interested to hear what you might have to say about that. Please drop a comment down below. Like if you found this video entertaining or informative. And if you know someone that you think needs to have a little bit more knowledge of the way the Convention of Thorns truly went down, share. Subscribe for more content. I am Voivode Maquette. This is our World of Darkness, and this has been a discussion of the Convention of Thorns. Good evening.